Oland, thanks for your time. For people who don't know you, let's just start with where you're from.
I am from Copenhagen, just the outskirts of Copenhagen in Denmark. And I lived there all of my life till I turned 15. Then I moved to Sweden for a couple of years to study ballet. And just recently I moved to New York. A new album, which is self-titled, that album is more about, I feel like I put a dot to that, like after what happened with the whole kind of personal tragedy when I stopped dancing. And my new album is about, it's all like experiences from my life, but put in little stories and little fairy tales that I tell in my music. It's about Åland, how it sounds and smells and looks like in Åland.
So the first song you started writing music from scratch, did you? After the injury, you hadn't written a song before that.
My parents were both musicians. My mom was an opera singer and my dad was a composer and an organist. And I grew up with a lot of music in my home. And I kind of grew up with the idea that music is something you create and not something you not something you passively listen to. So we never listened to music in my home. We didn't hear radio. I didn't listen to records. I only just heard the music that we were singing, and we had like a lot of instruments and piano, of course. And my parents would always have musicians coming in and out of the house. So I had always kind of unconsciously used my instrument, but without really. It was such a natural thing for me that I didn't even think about it. It was like breathing or something that you just do automatically. So it was not until like 4 years ago that this kind of urge to do music 100% like just forced its way up to the surface, and I just couldn't like hold it back no more.
So what were the influences then in terms of musical influences? It sounds like your family and your upbringing has obviously had a very big influence. How about actual artists or other musicians? Is there anyone that's kind of influenced perhaps the first album or this album?
I get inspiration from a lot of different places. I get inspiration from sounds and music that I've heard growing up, which was mostly classical music. I listened to a lot of like the Russian romantic ballet composers, and because I was dancing, and of course a lot of opera. I love the organic sounds in it, and I also I take a lot from that and use it in my music now. I have a lot of like string arrangements in my music and kind of orchestral sounding with choirs and stuff, but also I kind of missed something a little wilder and harder and something industrial, something that wasn't so pretty. So when I was a teenager, I discovered electronic music. I remember listening to Square Pusher and Tricky and Portishead. Like that was right when the whole trip hop wave began, and I got really into that and Björk, and then I think like I've just in my music mixed very much from those two extremes, something like purely electronic and very kind of like hard and mechanical, like machines like sounds, and then something that's really old and classical and traditional. So the way I work is I just do as much as possible. Whenever I get an idea, I try to put it into a song, and then sometimes it's good, and sometimes there's something that's better.
Who did you work with on the album? Is there anybody that sort of helped you with the album that we may have heard of?
The producers on the album are Dan Carey and Dave McCracken and Lester Mendes, but mostly Dan and Dave, who are both from London. So I've spent a lot of time here, both writing and in the production phase. It was amazing to work with musicians who were like, I felt like we had like we completely just like built our own little world and just like disintegrated from the world.
Musicians often say that they've spent all the time in the studio and done the album, and now they've got to go out and promote it and sell it, basically. How do you feel about that?
I've never questioned that part of it. Like I just that's a natural thing to do. Whenever, if you write a book and you've done your best to write the best story you can possibly do, then of course you want people to read it. And that's where I am right now. I've made this album and I've just like kept it in my hands and like just like protected it for so long, and now I just can't wait to get it out there and for people to hear it.
Fantastic. And you're playing this evening?
Yes, I'm playing tonight at Home House.
Fantastic. And just sort of very briefly, what can we expect from tonight?
I think my show, even though it's the same songs and stuff, it's always like I take in a lot from the audience and the vibe I get from the room. So it very much like determines whether it's like a very energetic up-tempo gig or if it's like more like kind of introvert gig. But I feel like tonight I've got a really good feeling of the room. It's quite like a intimate room, so I can really kind of
you can get some good vibe off the wallpaper, basically. That's brilliant. Well, listen, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.